Coming out of World War II, America's ideas about their country and the world around them were starting to change. Through these ideas came the beginning of the American anti-hero in films. The anti-hero is a protagonist in film or literature that lacks some heroic characteristics due to his or her willingness to go against what is considered right and lawful by society. The anti-hero movement escalated immensely through events like the Vietnam War and the Watergate crisis. These events changed how Americans perceived the world around them, which made them enjoy movies with anti-heroes. These protagonists were very different than other main characters had been in older movies. One of the first major impacts of the anti-hero movement on America came when Easy Rider, produced in 1969, hit theaters. This movie, starring Dennis Hopper, is about two hippie bikers, Billy and Wyatt, aka Captain America, making a cross-country journey in an attempt to find themselves. They were not afraid to express themselves, which leads to their eventual demise to Southern bigots. The fact that they were killed for expressing themselves made them very relatable to many Americans who wanted to express themselves in what they thought was, suppressing society. Easy Rider can almost be classified in a genre of its own, but many anti-hero films were prone to appear in certain genres.
We'll scare the hell out of them. You want me to blow your brains out? Why don't you get a haircut? What happened?
Billy. I got him. Oh, my God. I'm going for help, Billy.
I got him. I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him.
One genre that the anti-hero was a major part of was the gangster or mob movies. These movies, which followed a group or family involved in illicit activities, became extremely popular during the 70s. One of the major gangster movies of the time was The Godfather. This movie follows the Corleone family and their illicit activities, sometimes ending extremely violently. Virtue and dedication to the family is shown by the extreme ways the family protects themselves and their honor. In one scene, the audience finds themselves condoning, if not supporting, Michael Corleone's decision to kill men at point blank who tried to kill his father. This movie, like others in this genre, shows violence is sometimes necessary to get justice in an unjust world. Many Americans felt trapped in a society where justice could only be gotten with extreme measures, even though they would never do these extreme acts themselves. One of the reasons Americans enjoyed this kind of movie was because they could see their deepest, darkest fantasies being played out in extreme ways. One way the Westerns expressed the anti-hero was through Vietnam Westerns. In these films, Indians were normally considered the righteous protagonist, where invading U.S. forces were considered evil or bad. Vietnam Westerns showed the Indians mistreated, and therefore their revenge was validated and understood by the audience, even if they broke laws or went against the U.S. forces. These films were called Vietnam Westerns in large part because protesters of the Vietnam War thought the United States was unjustly invading and fighting in Vietnam. This can easily be compared to what happened to the Native Americans in America. Examples of these movies include Soldier Blue and Little Big Man, both which tell of Indians fighting different groups of white men for what they view as right. These movies show the increasing acceptance of minorities by white Americans, even though they had far to go at this point. This idea was a very important topic during this era of protest.
The other more important and more popular way Westerns expressed the anti-hero was through following an outlaw or a mysterious American man through his journeys in the Wild West. Though American Western films had been around for a while, Westerns in the 1960s and 1970s expressed a more unlawful and desolate world than in the previous Westerns. The protagonists in these films tended to be more morally ambiguous and challenged the common American conception of the Western hero. A notable anti-hero Western would be High Plains Drifter, produced in 1973. In this, Clint Eastwood depicts a classic Westerner on horseback coming into a mining town. Though he kills three men on his way into town, he eventually tries to help the town. Clint Eastwood had many roles as the protagonist in westerns. He was a key figure in making changes from the traditional hero to the anti-hero in western films. At one point in his career, after he filmed A Fistful of Dollars, he was quoted saying, "In Rawhide, I did get awfully tired of playing the conventional white hat, the hero who kisses old ladies and dogs and was kind to everybody. I decided it was time to be an anti-hero." He later would both direct and star in films with anti-heroes. One of these films includes High Plains Drifter. Eastwood was not only a star and a key contributor to the Western anti-hero movement, but also he contributed to other genres in the anti-hero movement with films such as Dirty Harry. Dirty Harry tells the story of a cop who goes against the commissioned orders to do what he views is right. Ultimately, he ends up killing Scorpio, the bad guy, and throwing his police badge in the water. This film's commercial success spurred the start of a new genre of police films in Hollywood. The anti-hero movement during the 1970s was brought about during a time in the United States history of many protests and much dissatisfaction with social and political issues. A new movement had started called the counterculture, which changed much in America. Now that parts of wars were able to be viewed uncensored on television, people saw the horrors of war and didn't like what they were seeing. The anti-hero movement in the 1970s showed this newfound criticism of the ideals of society. What had been viewed as a law came to be viewed as immoral by many of the protesters. People liked the anti-hero because, like the protesters, anti-heroes followed what they believed in. The idea of the anti-hero that allowed some of the greatest movies ever to be created during the 70s is still around today. Whether it be The Dark Knight, Django Unchained, Pulp Fiction, or many other great American movies, anti-heroes have remained very popular in movies today. Anti-heroes have completely changed Hollywood and films in the world forever. It has been argued that the rise of the anti-hero in the 70s was one of the most revolutionary developments, seconded only to the addition of sound in film.
I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? Well, to tell you the truth, in all this excitement, I've kind of lost track myself. But being this is a .44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world, and would blow your head clean off, you've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Hey, I got to know.